Foreign Minister Jaafari, thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers. So you are here in Istanbul. The Muslim world seems to be galvanized after Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel at a time when the situation is unresolved between Israelis and Palestinians. What is the Iraqi position on that decision and everything that is happening now as people react to it?
In the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful. First, thanks for hosting me. The Iraqi position towards Palestine, and most of all Jerusalem, is clear. And especially towards Jerusalem, it is a principled position, and it is not something new that was declared by Israel. Those are its intentions. It wants to devour the whole Islamic world. It targets Jerusalem because this city is the most important location for Arabs and Muslims' dignity. Jerusalem is the capital of Muslims, Christians, and Jews. It is not the capital of Zionism. Therefore, Palestinians who defend Jerusalem and Palestine are indeed defending these three nations. In my opinion, what is taking place through the whole world is a reaction or a referendum, as all of these three nations stood against Trump's declaration. And Trump committed a historic and strategic mistake in recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. This reaction suffices. Trump is now facing the people of all the nations of the world. Governments may be undutiful, trying to pacify for economic or political or security reasons. But the people do not pacify. They frankly express their opinion. This action is condemned and is absolutely unacceptable.
I want to talk about what's happening in Iraq now. Prime Minister Abadi announced victory over Daesh, and that's wonderful. Nobody around the world likes Daesh. But what can your country do to ensure that this doesn't happen again? Because it seems as if the recipes for Daesh are still the same in the country right now.
The people who made the victory were the Iraqi people. No one made it on behalf of the Iraqis. It is true that the governments and people of the world supported Iraq, based on the fact that the danger of Daesh is not only in Iraq, but in the whole world. Contemporary terrorism started in New York, and then it moved to Europe, then to Southeast Asia, reaching the Middle East. Iraq mobilized all powers to withstand and defeat terrorism. Iraq succeeded in that mission. It was a long journey, started in 2014 until the time being. We needed nothing more than the world's moral, political, logistic, and military support, as the war with Daesh was an unconventional war, and intelligence in this war plays a significant role. The world indeed gave us this support. Iraq crowned its war with victory. Daesh wanted to ascribe Islam to it and play on sectarianism. Daesh started with the three Sunni Iraqi cities, Anbar, Saleh al-Dain, and Mosul. Its false propaganda was clear. When Daesh invaded those three cities, it found the whole Iraqi people were against them, Sunnis and Shias alike. Those courageous Iraqi fighters were in those cities, Basra, Karbala, Najaf, and Diwaniyah. All those Iraqis resisted Daesh. So Iraq has proved to the whole world that Iraqi ranks are unified against Daesh and gained victory. The people who made this victory possible in those hard economic conditions will keep the torch of victory alight to sustain the results it achieved. Fallujah is a victim. You cannot calculate it like the rest of the cities. It was a victim and Daesh had control over it. So the rest of the cities came together to support them. That's the first point. The second point is the secret to victory, was most importantly the unified political class. All Iraqis came together with no exception, both Sunnis and Shia from all religions, Muslims and Christians. They were all unified together under one banner against Daesh. The second reason for victory was that the armies and military personnel stood together. That includes the military, police, Hashad al-Shabi, and Peshmerga, counterterrorism forces, and other forces. All of them stood together under the umbrella of the General Command of the Armed Forces to fight Daesh. Those two secrets, political and military, created a response regionally and internationally, and so the world stood with the Iraqi people with the support of the United Nations. Today, Iraq has 16 positions working under the United Nations due to the votes that we received there.
But it takes me back to the beginning of that question to ask you, how can you be so sure that we won't see groups like Daesh emerge again? Because in the fight against them, some crimes were committed. Sometimes along sectarian lines as well, whether from Hashd al-Sha'bi or other groups, well documented. So when you have people in a desperate situation, and if they were targeted specifically for being Sunni in the mix of the fight against Daesh, which is a righteous fight, how are you going to solve this problem long term? Because people essentially will rise up in revenge, won't they?
I'm speaking about the phenomenon of the popular mobilization units and their role side by side with the armed forces. It's a common scene, and I can show you a video on my mobile later. It shows how the PMUs stood to defend their Sunni brothers in Mosul. These claims are absolutely incorrect. The popular mobilization units gave many martyrs and sacrificed their blood and time in order to protect humanity and to help save people who were in the hands of Daesh in Mosul. Maybe there were one or two exceptional cases that happened, but that is very normal, and it is possible to happen during wars. But the strategy of them here was to sacrifice and save innocent people and take care of children and women and civilians, and this is all. We have it documented and databased.
This is a footage that His Excellency
This is Sunni from Mosul. 7 families captured in Mosul. No drugs, no food, no water. Sent Shiat from Diwania. He go there as a volunteer. He brought for them drugs, at the same time fruit, orange. He expected he's going to be died, to be killed. He saved them. He told him, you are going to be killed. He said, I'm going to be killed. But you are going to be alive, and I'm going to be killed. 10 days he married already, 10 days. He married. His name is Hussein Kifah.
So this is the Iraq you want?
Yes. Yes.
But is this the minority or the majority?
No, majority.
That's the question.
Of course, this majority. I'm sure from my speech. Majority.
Connected to this has been an accusation that Iraq is not fully in control of its own country, and that next door, Iran has too much influence on the country. Now, I asked this to the former Prime Minister and current Vice President Iyad Allawi, and he told me that Prime Minister Abadi has let in the Iranians too much, and that he said Iraq sometimes acts like a proxy state. He didn't say it specifically, but he said sometimes it acts like a proxy state for Iran, and he is very upset and disappointed by this. So as the foreign minister, as a former prime minister, and as the foreign minister of sovereign Iraq, is it fair to say that Iyad Allawi is right and that Iraq sometimes has to bend to the will of Iran?
أنا ما سامع من إياد علاوي وليس من عادتي ما لم أسمع من الشخص أو أجيبه مباشرة.
Iraq fought Daesh on behalf of the whole world, including Turkey. We fought on behalf of you, Syria, Iran, and all the neighboring states. Iraqis fought on behalf of Jordan and the whole world. Otherwise, you would see Daesh fighters moving the capitals of this region. In this context, Iraq has fought as a proxy on behalf of the whole world. As for support, Iraq was open to all states in the US-led coalition, making use of its capabilities and support. Some states are not members in the US-led coalition, like China, Russia, and Iran. Despite these facts, Iraq did not close its doors and did not exclude Russia, Iran, or China from participation. In September 2014, I was in New York when the Chinese foreign minister called me on the sidelines of the US-led coalition conference. He said, "We want to help you, but our foreign policy does not permit us to join coalitions. We want to help you, but outside this coalition." My answer was, "You are most welcome." I said to him, "We need your help." Based on this, I say, Russia, Iran, and China helped us.
Let me ask you about the Kurdish referendum, because they went ahead with it, even though your government warned them not to, the KRG. They warned and they went ahead with it, and they had an overwhelming yes in an election that you did not recognize. Your government decided to be tough. Did it work being tough with them?
التعامل مع الأخوة الكرد كان تعامل دستوري.
The way that we dealt with our Kurdish brothers was on a constitutional basis, and the federal principles were ratified constitutionally. And we have no problem in establishing any region in Iraq, but it should be under the regulation of the Constitution. And when they first declared the issue of the referendum, it meant there was a warning of separation. And we discussed this matter with the international community and the Arab League states, and with the IOC and the United Nations, as well as non-aligned countries. And we said very clearly that this is not a federal issue, but this is a matter of division, and it will make Iraq divided and split apart. And what happened in Iraq will happen in Turkey too, and Syria, and Russia, and Iran. Because all these countries have Kurdish elements and the separatist infection. And if this started in Iraq, it will immediately affect these other countries as well. So we hear one more time, we did not only defend the unification of Iraq, but we also defended the unification of all your countries in Turkey and Syria and Russia and Iran. And the federal system in Iraq is considered the best federal system in the world. The United States of America has 50 federal states, and they have 50 American Congresses, plus 50 flags and 50 heads of state and 50 local constitutions. But the United States has only one capital, which is Washington. And they have one president, which is President Trump, and before him was President Obama. There is not a federal system in the world that gives the foreign minister and the defense minister a sovereign ministry. So we dealt with them in a very civilized way. And at first, when they raised the issue of the referendum, I spoke during a meeting of the Arab League states, and I said this will put Iraq at risk, and we rejected that. And I said this is not a legal or constitutional practice. And immediately I showed them the Constitution and started reading Article number 1, that Iraq is a unified country and does not accept any divisions. And the Arab Summit Conference voted by consensus without exception and condemned the issue and considered it unconstitutional and illegal. The same thing for the OIC and the non-aligned states. All of them rejected it in one word.
So we have the OIC here, we have all these bodies consisting of Muslim majority countries. It's a mix of Arab and Muslim and so on. Some Muslim minorities, but with substantial minorities. And then we have Mohammed bin Salman. He has some big ideas. And he decided to form an Islamic military alliance, 40 countries. And his idea is Saudi Arabia leading the Muslim world to fight terrorism, to make sure that Daesh doesn't come up again, and other issues, by getting together and forming like an Islamic NATO. And so when I look at the countries, I see even countries like Uganda. Yoweri Museveni is an evangelical Christian. The country has a 13% Muslim population. They're in the alliance. Countries like Uganda, Togo are in the alliance as well. 40 countries. They didn't invite Iran. They didn't invite Iraq as well. Are they saying, you guys are the Shia countries and we don't like you? And we are a Sunni alliance plus some others. Is that the lesson to you? What are they trying to say?
This question should be directed to Mohammed bin Salman himself. He is the one that should answer this question and not me about why the invitation is not being sent. But previously, the invitation was sent to us in order to establish an Islamic alliance, and we rejected that. Not because of anything except that they entered Yemen. And when they did that, And during the conference at Sharm el-Sheikh, I yelled at them and said, "This is not true, because you are not trying to name it on behalf of the Arab League states. And that didn't even hold a meeting or a vote for it. And yet your Saudi forces entered Yemen. And this is a historical mistake. You entered and bombed Yemen, and that harmed many innocent Yemeni people. What happened now in Yemen? Innocent Yemeni people got killed, and Saudis got killed, and people from the United Arab Emirates also killed. And Iraq mentioned that from the beginning, that this is a historical mistake to enter Yemen in such a way, because Yemen will resist the occupation and is very stubborn to be occupied. We are usually invited to this kind of event, but we are rejecting to be part of an alliance based on this. The Arab states have many Arabs and even non-Arab people too, and Kurdish and Turkmen as well, especially in Iraq. There are Muslims and non-Muslims. Also, there are Sunni and Shia. We don't want it to be a religious or sectarian or national war. It should be a war with a humanitarian nature only. And without that title, we will never join any coalition. We are the ones who started this initiative, and we are the ones who rejected it. And we might accept to deal with others when this is going to be a humanitarian-based process that will not discriminate against people based on sex or religion or nationality.
Ibrahim al Jaafari, it's been a pleasure having you on the Newsmakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imran. Thanks a lot.
Appreciated.
شكرا جزيلا.